אנחנו מוצאים את הספור עם זרה שמשון?
האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה? מה? כן.
Erev Tov, good evening, Dobro V'Yetcher. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parsha Be'halot'cha. We are doing Os Vav, section number 6. In order to get into this section, we need to take a look at 3 psukim from our Parsha. It's a very, very famous incident in which Aharon and Miriam say some words about Moshe that Hashem considers inappropriate. Let's take a look at those psukim. This is Bamidbar, Parak Yud Beis, Psukim Aleph through Gimel. Again in Parsha Be'halot'cha. Vatidaber Miriam ve'Aharon b'Moshe, and Miriam and Aaron spoke about Moshe. Al odos ha'isha hakushis asher lokach, regarding the Cushite woman that he had taken, meaning that he had married. Ki isha chushis lokach, because he had married a Cushite woman. Vayomru, and they said, Harak ach b'Moshe diber Hashem? Did Hashem only speak to Moshe? Halo gam bonu diber. Isn't it true that Hashem also spoke to us, meaning to Aaron and Miriam? Vayishma Hashem, and Hashem heard this. V'ha'ish Moshe onov me'od, and the man Moshe was exceedingly humble. Mikol ha'adam, from all of people, from all human beings, asher al penei ha'adamah, that are on the face of the earth. So those are the 3 psukim. Chazal tell us that what Miriam and Aaron were talking about, or what they were referring to, was the fact that they learned that Moshe had stopped living with his wife as husband and wife, because Moshe had to be ready for Hashem to speak to him at any moment. And therefore, he had separated from his wife in that sense, and in terms of intimacy, sexual intimacy. And that's what they were referring to when they said, we haven't separated from our spouses, and Hashem also spoke to us. Miriam was a Neviah, of course, and Aaron was a Navi. Torah tells us Hashem spoke to them. So therefore, they were saying, Hashem also has spoken to us, and we haven't separated from our spouses, yet Moshe has made the decision to separate from his spouse. And as the psukim say, Hashem was not pleased that they spoke this way about Moshe, and ultimately Miriam, who initiated the conversation, her name is mentioned first here, was struck with tzara'as, and Chazal tell us that Aaron's love for Miriam and closeness to her was such that he felt as if he was also struck with tzara'as as well, and we'll see a little hint to that in the Zera Shimshon's language a little bit later on. So those are the psukim, and now let us take a look at the Zera Shimshon, Os Vav, section 6. V'ha'ish Moshe onov me'od, and the man Moshe was exceedingly humble, v'chule, etc. Koshe. There's a difficulty here with this pasuk. Ma inyan zeh lekan. What is the connection about a pasuk dealing with Moshe's humility to this story of Aaron and Miriam and Aaron saying something about Moshe, speaking about Moshe and what he was doing in terms of his connection with his wife? What does that have to do? Why does the pasuk suddenly say Moshe was very humble? Im lilamdenu shem Moshe lo heishiv klum. If it's to teach us that Moshe did not reply at all le'Aharon u'Miriam, to Aharon and Miriam, lefi shehoya ona v'savlon, because he was a humble and very patient and tolerant person. If that's the reason that the Torah puts in the pasuk here, seemingly out of nowhere, suddenly says Moshe was an exceedingly humble person more than any other human being, if the reason was to tell us that Moshe didn't reply to what they said about him, halo lezeh ein tzarech sheyeh onav yoser mikol ha'adam. That doesn't need, for that purpose, you don't need to say that Moshe was more humble than any other human being. Shahare af sha'ar ha'anavim osin kain. Because even kind of regular humble people, just Regular humble people would do that. They wouldn't reply. Sheshomen cherposam ve'ena meshiven, because according to Chazal, and you can see it's a Gemara in Masechta Yuma, the criteria to be a humble person, one of the characteristics of a humble person is that they hear themselves being disparaged or criticized, and they don't respond. So the Zera Shimshon says that reason about maybe the Torah is telling us this to show us why Moshe didn't respond to what Aaron and Miriam said. That doesn't work. That doesn't meet this pasuk, because this pasuk goes overboard and talking about Moshe's humility. Moshe was exceedingly humble, more than any other human being. There must be a reason why the Torah put that pasuk here in relation and connection to this story, this incident. B'yesh lomar, and we can say shebelow zeh, without the question that we just asked, meaning independently of the question we just asked, yesh lahakshos al Aaron and Miriam. There's really a question about Aaron and Miriam's actions here. De'ech mile libam, how did it fill their heart? Meaning, how could they have found it possible, Lomar, to say LeMoshe, to Moshe, or about Moshe, Harak ach v'Moshe diber Hashem, halo gam banu diber? Did Hashem only speak to Moshe? Didn't Hashem also speak to us? The Zera Shimshon says, how could they possibly have said that? V'halo Moshe zoche lalos l'rakia. Moshe merited to go up to Shamayim, to go up to the heavens, to receive the Torah, mashelo zochu heim, something that they did not merit. And that fact alone should have made it inconceivable to Miriam and Aaron to speak the way they spoke and to kind of seemingly compare themselves and their prophetic gifts to Moshe. V'tzarech lomar, and we need to say shehem hayu svurim, that they, meaning Miriam and Aaron, thought shemash zocha lalos l'shamayim, the fact that Moshe merited to go up to receive the Torah, lo hayu bishvil zchus atzmo, that wasn't because of his own personal merit, ela bishvil zchus Yisrael shehayu shliach shelahem, but rather it was because Hashem had appointed him as the messenger of the Jewish people, and that's why he merited this unprecedented and incredible zechus, this incredible privilege and honor to go up to Shamayim and receive the Torah. V'in hachinami sha'af navi acher, and according to this reasoning, even a different prophet, shehaya shiluchan shel Yisrael, who would have been the messenger of the Jewish people, would have also merited to be able to go up to Shamayim. So the Zera Shimshon is explaining the reasoning that Aaron and Miriam, he thinks, must have had. As Chazal themselves say in the Gemara in Brachos, so a similar idea. Lech reid. That's two words, a quote of what Hashem said to Moshe after the Jewish people, after Bnei Yisrael constructed the Egel Azov, the golden calf. Hashem said, Lech reid, go down, go descend. So the Gemara says about those words, my Lech reid, what does it mean exactly when Hashem said, go descend? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe, it means that Hashem said to Moshe, Klum nasati l'cha gedula, have I given you any greatness? Ella bishvil Yisrael, except it was all of your greatness, Moshe, is because of the Jewish people. Achshav she Yisrael chatu, now that the Jewish people have sinned so grievously, lama l'cha gedula, why should you continue to have greatness? On Khan, until here is a quote from the Gemara in Brachos. So the Zera Shimshon says, it seems like Miriam and Aaron had a line of thinking here, and their line of thinking was Moshe is not really that different from us, in the sense that because Hashem appointed him to be the shliach of Bnei Yisrael, that's why he merited to go up and receive the Torah. However, let's imagine one of us or a different Navi had the same position that Moshe was given as the leader and the messenger of Bnei Yisrael, then presumably that person also in that role would have gone up. And the Zera Shimshon says we can even find a type of support for that, not exactly that idea, but a type of support from a Gemara in Masechta Brachos about Moshe's greatness being dependent upon upon the level of Bnei Yisrael. Now he continues. Umishum hachi, and because of this, mile libom lomar leMoshe. This is how their heart could be filled with this idea that they could say to Moshe, Harak ach b'Moshe, is it only to Moshe, v'chule, etc., that Hashem spoke? That is where they got the nerve, so to speak, or got the idea to speak the way they did. V'lochein, and therefore, now the Zera Shimshon is going to go back. Once he explained that issue, now he can go back and answer his original question in the first paragraph. V'lochein bo hakosov lahoros lanu. Therefore, the Torah is coming to teach us she'eno kach, that this is not so. What Aaron and Moshe assumed or thought is incorrect. Ella, but rather Moshe zocha b'schus atzmo lalos l'rakia. Moshe had his own personal merit that enabled him to go up to Shamayim. Mipnei shehaya onav me'od yoser mikol ha'adam. And because he was more humble than any other human being, that's why the Torah put the pasuk here, because it explains why Moshe was so unique and why he was able to go up to Shamayim, because of his personal merit. Umitam zeh zocha liyo shliach ben Yisrael lemakom. And it's for this reason that Moshe merited to be the representative between Bnei Yisrael and Hashem. It's not that Hashem needed to pick someone, and so Hashem picked Moshe, and that's what gave Moshe all of his merit. No, it was because of Moshe's humility that he merited to be, his extraordinary humility, his unique humility, his unprecedented humility, that he would merited to be the representative of Bnei Yisrael, and then merited to go up to Shamayim. It was all based on Moshe's personal qualities. Ha'acher, behold, we're now moving to the next page. If it was a different person, she'eno kol kach onav, who was not as humble as Moshe, lo hayayachol liyo shliach kamohu. Such a person could not have been a messenger like Moshe was, and would not have merited to do all the things that Moshe merited to do. Ki the Amrinun Besota Parakama, as we say in Gemara Sota, the first chapter, Chad Omar Ani Es Daka, Vechad Omar Iti Daka. One of the Amoraim said, it means I, and the I here is a reference to Hashem. We'll explain this in a moment. Ani es daka, I am with the lowly or the humble. Vechad Omar, and the other Amora, the other scholar said, iti daka, with me are the humble, are the lowly people. So what's going on over there is the Gemara is talking about a pasuk in Sefer Yeshaya, and it refers to Hashem having a connection and being with those that are of lowly of spirit and those that are humble and downtrodden. And so the Gemara has a little bit of an argument about exactly what does it mean, how to understand the words exactly. Does it mean Hashem says, I, so to speak, come down and am with the humble and downtrodden and lowly of spirit? Or does it mean I elevate them and bring them to me? But the Zera Shimshon's point is, according to either of those two views, according to either opinion, Hashem has a close, special, unique bond with those who are humble and those that are of low spirit. And that supports the whole idea he just developed about Moshe's uniqueness because of his extraordinary humility. Zera Shimshon is now continuing and moving to another idea, a related idea, but he answered his original question, so he's moving to his next point. V'hatam sheloku Aaron and Miriam bitzaras, the reason that Aaron and Miriam were struck with tzaras, and here is that hint I alluded to in the beginning. the Zera Shimshon says Aaron and Miriam were both struck, right? And we know that it was Miriam who was really stricken with saras that stayed with her and lasted, and she had to be sent out of the camp. But it says if Aaron was struck as well. Lefi shechoshtu leMoshe. It's because they were suspicious of Moshe. She'asa zeh, that he did what he did, meaning he separated from his wife, mishum gasos haruach, because of arrogance. They had a thought that maybe Moshe did this not because he was obligated to do it, but because he somehow had a tiny bit of arrogance in him. The Amrinan be'arochen and Chazal say in Masechta Arochen, din negoim boim al gasos haruach. Being struck with tsaras comes on people who have arrogance. That's not the only reason a person can be struck with tsaras, but the Gemara gives it as one of the reasons a person can be struck with tsaras. It can come on a person because of his or her arrogance. Mishum hachi, because of this, loku bin negoyim, they were struck with tsaras. Mida keneged mida, measure for measure, meaning because Miriam and Aaron had a suspicion about Moshe of something that was totally untrue, that he, out of a certain self-conceit, separated from his wife, even though he wasn't obligated to do so, and even though he didn't need to do so. And that would mean if Moshe had gasos haruach, that would have made Moshe liable to be struck with saras. Because of that, their punishment was to be struck with saras. Umashe kosav mikol ha'adam. Asher al penei ha'adama. Now the Zera Shimshon turns his attention to the rest of the pasuk about Moshe's humility, where it says Moshe was exceedingly humble, mikol ha'adam, from all of the people or all of man, asher al penei ha'adama, that are on the face of the earth. So the Zera Shimshon is going to focus very carefully on explain these words very carefully. Lefi sheshem adam. It is because the name Adam, the word itself, Adam, the name Adam that Hashem gave to the first human being, More al Chozek Hagava, it instructs us about the strength of the pride or arrogance, Koshe Ke'adama, which makes a person as hard as the earth, as hard as the ground. So why was Adam called Adam? There's lots of different reasons for that, but here Zera Shimshon is saying Adam was called Adam. One of the reasons is because he's like the Adama, he's like the ground. All human beings are like the ground because we have a hard gaiva, a hard arrogance, a hard ego, a hard conceit. Umitzad acher, and from a different perspective, this name Adam, Romeis el ha'anava v'hashiflus. It hints to something totally different, to an opposite idea. It hints to mankind's humility and lowliness, the ability for a person to be a humble and low, consider himself in a lowly way. Kimo ha'adama, which is also similar to the ground, shahakol dashim ba, because everyone steps on the ground. So adama, ground, is a very, very apt word to take mankind's name of Adam for the first man, and even later we can call a person an Adam. There are other words as well to refer to a human being, but we can call a person an Adam, and mankind is referred in that way because it has two meanings. One, people can have a tendency to have gaba, to have arrogance, and that makes them hard like ground. And people can also human beings are also given the gift of having a low spirit and a humble spirit, which is what Hashem wants us to do. And that's also similar to the ground because everybody walks on the ground. The ground is low, it's lowly, and everyone steps on it the same way a humble person accepts the fact that I'm low, I don't need people to respect me, it doesn't matter how they treat me, etc. Umishum hachi amar, and because of this idea, this duality, this double kind of possible meaning to the word Adam, because of this, amar, it said, the pasuk says, Shahaya anav yoser mikol ha'adam. It says Moshe was more humble than any person. Hayadua, asher al panei ha'adama, that was known to ever be on the earth. Shemasha hakol doshim hu al panei ha'adama. Because when we talk about the aspect of ground, of everyone stepping on the ground, that fits with the reference of the pasuk hu al panei ha'adama, on the face of the earth. That's why the Torah used that expression, on the face of the earth, because it's the surface of the earth that everyone steps on, which represents humility. Umishahu misgoeh, someone who's prideful, hu domet lekoshi guf ha'adama. He can be compared, or he is similar to the hardness of the actual guf ha'adama, the earth itself, the ground itself, not the surface. The surface represents the place that people step on. It represents humility, but the hardness of the earth and of the impact of the packed earth. That's where we get the reference for the word Adam to have something to do, to have a connection to gaiva, to arrogance. Next paragraph coming up. Ubazeh yevur hakosov. And with this understanding, we can explain, or the following pasuk from Vayikra can be explained. This is a pasuk, I believe, from Parshas Acharei Mos. Ushemartem es chukosai ve'es mishpatai. And you should guard my statutes and my judgments, asher yaseh osam ha'adam, that a person should do v'chai bohem, and live through them. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. The Zera Shimshon is going to take this pasuk, which at face value has nothing to do with what we've been talking about. It's not connected seemingly, apparently in any way. And he's going to show how the ideas that he developed for us until now help us come to a very novel and deep understanding of this pasuk, which I think it's safe to say we would not have seen probably on our own. Okay. The Garsinon Besota, Chazal say in Maseches Sota, Kol Adam sheyesh bo gasas haruach, every person that has arrogance, ki'ilu bo al kol ha'arayos kulam, it is as if he violated all the laws of sexual immorality. It's as if the arrogant person, it's as if he violated all of those prohibitions, which of course are such serious prohibitions that a person has to give up his or her life before violating many of the arayos, many of the Torah's sexual prohibitions. Rabbi Yochanan didei Omar, and Rabbi Yochanan himself said about arrogance, ki'ilu kofer be'ikr. It's as if a person who's arrogant, it's as if he denies the main principle, meaning the existence of Hashem. It's as if he denies that fundamental principle of monotheism. Ve'ein aforo ninaer. And the Gemara over there also says that his dust, an arrogant person's dust, after the person dies, and now his skeleton has turned into dust, ein aforo ninaer. His dust will not be stirred up, meaning at the time of Tchias HaMesim, his dust will not be stirred up and reformulated into a body. He will not, the arrogant person will not merit Tchias HaMesim, the revival, the experience of the revival of the dead. The Od Sham B'Samuch, and the Gemara also in addition says over there, Ein Tfiloso Shel Adam Nishma'as, the prayer of a person is not heard, Ela Im Kain Mesim Atzmo Kebasar, unless he makes himself as if he is flesh. Omer Rabbi Zera said in connection to that statement, Adam lo ksiv be v'nirpa. If you look regarding the Torah's discussion of tzara'as, of the skin disease that we've talked about earlier, if you look in the Torah's discussion of that in Parshas Tazria, you will find that the Torah does not use the word nirpa, which means to be healed from the tzara'as, in a pasuk where it uses the word Adam, man. It talks about a man, a person getting tzara'as, but it doesn't use the word v'nirpa, being healed from tzara'as. Bosar ksiv be. But when the Torah in that same section in Parshas Tazria talks about flesh, meaning a person gets tzara'as on his or her flesh, then ksiv be v'nirpa. Then the Torah does use the word and healed, that the person will be healed from his or her affliction of tsaras. Upirish Rashi explains what point is Rabbi Zera making. Mishahu kosher ke'adama, it means a person who is hard like the ground. They're arrogant, as we said before, and it makes them a hard, tough person. Ein refuah lemachosav. He will not have a cure for his ailments. Aval mishahu rach ve'onav kebasar, but a person who is soft and humble like flesh, that's why basar, that's why it uses the word nirpa in connection to flesh. Yisrape maher, he will be healed quickly. So the Zera Shimshon has shown us from the quotes from this, many different quotes from the Gemara and Sota, the incredible importance of being a humble person and being a soft, a tender, patient person, as opposed to being, God forbid, a hard, arrogant person, in which case it's viewed in all kinds of terrible ways, as if you violated arayos, as if you kofir be'ikr, and as if you won't even deserve techiyas hamesim. Now, keep all those things in mind, because the Zera Shimshon is going to come back now and connect each one of those things to the pasuk which he told us he's going to explain, the pasuk of Ushamartem es chukosai es mishpatai, etc. And you'll see it now. Ve'af al pi shepirish Rashi, and even though Rashi explained Sheshem Adam Romes al Chozek Hagava Kosher Ke'adama, even though Rashi explained that the word Adam hints to the fact that mankind suffers from a powerful conceit and arrogance that makes him hard like the ground, like Adama. We call Makam, nevertheless, Ha'emesu, the truth is, Sheshem Adam, the name man also, Yirmos also hints, Gam Kain, Mitzad Acher, also from the other perspective, El Ha'anava, it hints to humility, V'hashiflus, in a low spirit, Kamo Ha'adama, Shahakol Doshim Alav, like the ground that everyone steps on, Kinizkar La'el, as the Zera Shimshon explained previously, how the word Adama has both of those connections. The word Adam is connected to ground in both of those ways. V'hapasuk ba lilamdenu, and now we have to follow this very carefully. In the pasuk of Vishamartem es chukosai, you should guard my statutes and my judgments that people do and live with. Here comes the explanation. Shemi sheyeh onav, if a person is truly humble, lo yavul al ha'arayos, he will not violate the Torah's laws of sexual immorality. Why does the pasuk say v'chai bohem? To say this person who's not arrogant will live. He will be revived at the time of tchiyas hamesim. V'lo yihiyeh kofer be'ikr, and he will not be someone who denies Hashem's existence. That comes from the end of the pasuk where it says Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. V'lochein Omar, and therefore the pasuk says Asher Yaseh Osam Ha'adam. The person will do these mitzvos. Klomar, what does it mean to say in this context? Shamru mitzvos ha'arayos. The person will be careful about the mitzvos of sexual immorality. Asher yishmor osam ha'adam hayadua shehu onav. Who will be so extra careful not to violate those laws? A person who is humble. Lo mishahu chazak adama, not a person who is arrogant and hard like the ground. That person, God forbid, could stumble into the violating the laws of arayos. Ubishvil zeh, and because the humble person keeps himself very, very far away from doing averos like arayos, v'chai bohem, then that person is going to live through his observance. What does that mean? The hainu aforo ninaer means his dust, the remains of his body will be stirred up at the time of techiyas hamesim. That's indicated by v'chai bohem. You will live through your observance of these mitzvos. V'yakir, and such a person will also recognize ki ani Hashem. The last three words of that pasuk, I am Hashem, meaning that person will not be a denier and someone who doesn't believe in Hashem, God forbid. Umichlal hein ata shomei lav, and from the positive you can learn out the negative. She'im yeh bogasos haruach, If a person, instead of being humble and soft and forgiving, has arrogance, yikashel be'arayos, that person will stumble, God forbid, with the sexual immorality laws, ve'ena faro ninayer, and that person's dust will not be brought back to life at the time of tchias hamesim, ve'yach por chas v'sholem be'ikr, and that person, God forbid, will deny the fundamental principle of God's existence. So the Zera Shimshon took the pasuk from Achrei Mos, which again, when we read that pasuk, most of us connected. It's often connected to the idea that when we do the mitzvos, we have to live through doing the mitzvos, and therefore we don't keep mitzvos if it would cause our death in general, except with a few exceptions. That's what this pasuk is famous for generally. Zera Shimshon says there's a whole other thing going with the pasuk and how it connects to the importance, the incredible overriding importance of trying to build the midah, the character trait of anava, of humility, and distancing ourselves as much as is possible from gava, from arrogance, and from that kind of hard-heartedness that comes along with arrogance. And God willing, we'll be zochet to that. Yasher koach to everyone who joined us this week. We look forward to learning Zera Shimshon again next week.